What up, y'all? In this episode, we had my guy, Wale. Man, I've known Wale for 5 years now, and he keeps leveling up his life every single year, and it's awesome to see. Really proud to call him a friend. Train Muay Thai with him, train Jiu Jitsu with him. Yeah, I mean, he's killing it. He just got back from Dubai. He also was in Nigeria to see his family, and so just lots of great things going for him. And he has a beautiful perspective. It takes a little second for him to start to warm up and kind of get used to doing the whole podcasting thing. But once he gets warmed up and he gets settled in, he really starts to open up and honestly gives some incredible insight. So I hope y'all enjoy the episode. And as always, we have shirts. Smalls and mediums are in influx. So if you need one, please let me know. They're $25. Happy to ship one out to you. And as well as Redmond's Salt, Redmond's Relight, all of their products, you can get 15% off using my code Brodey. There's also a link in my Instagram bio. Yeah, enjoy the episode. 3, 2, 1. Wale,
yeah,
my guy, world traveler. Guy's been all over the place. Dude, how was Dubai?
Dubai was cool. It was a good experience. I enjoyed it. It was a short trip though, so I feel like on a short trip like that, sometimes you don't get a chance to experience the entire country, everything that is there. So I was kind of just in the business side of of Dubai, which was nice.
How long were you there for?
About 5 days.
Yeah. What was the thing that shocked you the most?
So the thing that shocked me the most in traveling to Dubai prior to the trip, I try to do research on what is socially expected, whatever the case may be. And some of the advice I was given was that it was a very strict place. That there were a lot of rules, that you can be fined for this and for that and for that. And when I got there, it wasn't like that at all. It was pretty chill.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of, and I think maybe it's changing. Maybe it was previously strict like that, but it's changing because of maybe the increased number of tourists that are coming to Dubai. So.
Yeah, it definitely seems like there's a lot of tourism going over there for sure. It's a popular place. And you didn't get to go to Abu Dhabi? You just went to Dubai?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. How was the weather?
The weather was good. I mean, it was sandy a lot of the times. Sometimes you would stand on the highest balcony on the 42nd floor and you would look over, but you wouldn't be able to see more than 100 yards in front of you.
Yeah.
So it was good. The temperature was great, and then when the sun did come out, when the sand cleared, it was really nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the sandstorms are crazy. Did you see them zap the clouds?
No, I did not see them.
You didn't get to see them make it rain or nothing? Mm-mm. Dude, apparently they make it rain multiple times a week. I thought it was more of a sparingly thing, but apparently they make it rain multiple times a week.
I mean, it's interesting because if you're building, they built this city in the desert, just about. So it makes sense for them to need to create that.
It's just crazy that they can. It's just crazy that they can mess with the clouds, right? And then where else do they do that at?
Oh, they're definitely doing it.
And how much else are they messing with the clouds? Apparently it takes like already kind of rainy cloud. And so when they zap it, what does it say?
So they use aircraft and drones, salt flares, and electrical charges to enhance rainfall.
Yeah. How often?
That's a good question.
So it is
About
1,000 hours annually. So 1,000 hours annually. So, I mean, you can make it rain once a day for a couple of hours to hit that. Which, yeah, so, I mean, they definitely do it a significant amount. I just didn't know it was that often. I thought it was much more of a rare thing. I didn't know that they are constantly making it rain. I just thought if the drought got too bad, they would then make it rain. Did it rain while you were there?
Yeah, it did.
So they made it rain while you were there.
Yeah, it was for a very short time though. It didn't really last long, so.
Like how long?
I would actually probably say like maybe under 10 minutes.
So it's real short.
I don't know if that's a regular. I only experienced it once, so I can't really speak to.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, I'm sure they make it rain for longer periods, but it'd be interesting to see if that was just like it just happened to rain for 10 minutes or did they make it rain for 10 minutes?
Yeah.
And then I wonder how much control they have over the duration of which it rains. And like how much, like, is it based on like how much electrical current you shoot into the cloud? Does that make it rain more? And then do you get to, do you just stop shocking it? Or do you just shock it once and then it just fucking just starts crying and empties itself? And then it just goes until it's empty.
Man, I have no idea.
Damn it, Wale.
I have no idea.
You're supposed to know.
You know?
You're supposed to know, Wale.
The idea that they can control the weather, though, it does bring up a lot of different questions, you know, about some of the other storms and some of the other things that have happened that we've been seeing lately.
Dude, the flooding in New Braunfels area, they just stopped talking about that. Like that quickly just got pushed under the rug. They were like, nope, nothing to see here. Even though the seeding company said that they were in the area just a few days prior to that flood. I think someone fucked up. I think they were trying to play with clouds and someone fucked up. Someone said, oopsies.
Interesting.
And then flooded that area. And in result of it, people died. Like it seems like someone was fucking with something.
And it's not something that you hear about. There's just so many things that are going on right now to where things like that I think that we're being desensitized to it all just as well.
Well, it's just the media cycle.
It's faster.
Just flows, just keeps going and never stops. You're never allowed to stop and start asking questions because it's just on to the next thing and then on to the next thing and then on to the next thing. And so there's probably a mixture of coincidences in mix with things done on purpose or unintentionally, but still manufactured. Right. And so those floods, do I think someone zapped the cloud so hard that they made it purposely flood like that? No, probably not. But there's probably a decent chance that someone fucked up.
When you're trying to control things that are, typically outside of your control, your natural control, you're including the opportunity for human error, so that could be a possibility for sure.
Dude, that's a big one. Like trying to play with the weather, trying to play God essentially, and then fucking it up. And then people died. Like that's a crazy thing. Like, and whether or not that's exactly what happened, I don't know. But seeding companies did admit that they were in the area prior to that major flood, and they were playing around with the clouds, quote unquote. And then it just kind of got brushed under the rug, and then now here we are. And now ice is the new COVID. Ice is the new COVID.
Ice is the new COVID. Say more. What do you mean?
Like the mass hysteria that it is causing is the exact same thing that they did in COVID. They keep it in your face and they keep it just fucking just blasting and blasting and blasting. And then they choose very specific wording.
You're talking about the media cycle again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then they choose very specific wording to represent the videos And you can notice if you go look at like a CNN post versus like a New York Times post or like a New York Post, and you can see the different wording that people use in order to extrapolate some kind of emotional feeling from it, right? Because look, the truth is that the videos are awful to watch. But then on the flip side, the reality is that, dude, this shit's been going on. Deportations is nothing new. ICE is not a new formation of the federal government. ICE has been a part of the federal government for a long time. A lot of these officers that are working on ICE have been ICE agents for 5+ years. Like the guy that was involved in the Minnesota shooting, he was an ICE agent for 10 years. He's been in the federal government, been a federal agent for quite some time, right? And so I think a lot of it is manufactured outrage. They're purposely ramping it up, because what year is it? Midterms. And so they're really ramping it up. They're really digging into it. They're really pumping out the articles. They're really keeping up that counter in front of your face. It's just like COVID. It feels the exact same. It feels very over exaggerated. Are there incidents where people are making mistakes or people are doing bad things? Sure, I'm sure, right? Cops fuck up. Cops make mistakes. Is that the glaring majority of cops? No,
it's not good.
Right? Same thing with ICE. Are there going to be people who fuck up? Absolutely, dude. Nothing is perfect, right? And I think when it comes to ICE, what I think bothers me the most about people's outrage is not that empathetically they're wrong. It's that there is no accountability for the reason how we got here. Like, we got here because we had an open border for 4 years. There is a new estimate that came out that I saw the other day that in just 2023, they estimated 14 million people came over just in 2023. That's an insane number. And then in total in that 4 years, the estimated number is somewhere between, 25 million-ish. So of course there's going to be an even heightened ICE patrol. Now on the flip side, I think having a quota attached to it is never good. Like, we've both been in sales long enough. If you attach a quota to something and there's a number or marker that we have to hit in order to keep your job, quote unquote, or to hit goal or to make your commission or whatever it is, whatever that incentive is, people are going to do anything and everything to hit that quota. And so what we're seeing is there is definitely ICE agents taking the path of least resistance, and they're taking the low-hanging fruit, and they're snatching people who are maybe working at a construction site, or maybe they're working on a farm, or maybe they've been here for 10, 20 years. Yes, illegally, but maybe they've been here for a very long time, and maybe they hadn't done anything wrong. And then it's like, should there be like a statute of limitation in place where you don't pick those folks up? Or there's people, then there's people that say, no, look, the law is the law, and you can't pick and choose, because then that's when it gets really murky. When you're starting to like pick and choose and you're cherry picking which person gets deported and which person doesn't get deported. And then now it gets really gray, and then there's going to be, then people will find something wrong with that. They'll be like, oh, well, this guy should have got deported over this guy, or why didn't this guy get deported when this guy got deported? And then it just gets real weird when in order to have law and order, the law is the law. The law doesn't care about your emotions, and there has to be a line drawn somewhere. I just don't know what that line should be.
It's a lot. It's a lot to that whole situation. And I think that what I try to look at is, I think there may be truth to both perspectives in that. So we have to explore the problem, the fact that there was an open border, but at the exact same point, we also have to look at the situation that's taking place right now, to where ICE is coming in. A lot of those people have been working with the federal government for several years, 5 years, as you said. But at the exact same point, there is also the fact that because of the increase in numbers, you have to bring in more ICE agents to account for that. And at the start of Trump's term, there was a lot of conversations and even incentives around coming and becoming an ICE agent, like cash, 20, I don't even know what the number was, but
offering a bonus,
a bonus just to sign on. So you're going to attract all the people who are attracted to that money first and foremost. And I believe that the point that you made when it talks about having a quota attached to it, the quota can sometimes drive the wrong behavior.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Because like you said, you're looking to go and get that, hit that quota by any means. What if they got more bonuses attached to you meeting your quota? Now you're incentivized to hunt or to track people down so that you can financially gain. That's a messed up system, but I think that also starts from the top down, because when you're trying to reach a quota number of, I need to bring in this many people within this period of time in order to achieve this longer term goal, what can happen from that point is that you bring in the wrong people. Or we experience something to where, I don't know if this is true or false, but I believe that they said that there was like a 6-week training for some of the ICE agents that were coming in. I don't know how much formal training they're going through.
Yeah.
You don't know if these people are being properly having psych evaluations, because some people, they get some authority in that way. And, it lets them big up their chest, what I'm saying? Like they're feeling like they're the big guy because now they got some power. So I think that it's important. I think that it's needed. I think that, there is a problem that was caused that has to be addressed, and that it doesn't look pretty addressing the issue, and that it is a polarizing topic.
It is polarizing. Yeah. I've been thinking about it a lot. Because I always ask myself, all right, so what's the alternative? What's the alternative? And I think about this, they're talking about people being, quote unquote harassed about having to show their papers, or they're walking around and they're listening for accents and they're doing these things. And I'm like, yeah, okay, all that doesn't sound great. It's not great. But then I'm thinking about it logistically, and I'm actually trying to really see how this process works. And I'm picturing okay, they probably just have a bunch of names. How many pictures do they actually have? I don't know how many. Do you have pictures of every single one of these people? That doesn't seem very likely. That's why they're undocumented. That's why they're illegal. They don't really really exist, so to speak, right? And so, unless they've been picked up prior, I don't see how they have a picture always. I don't name mismatch, or name matching is a real thing too. My buddy who was on the podcast, he got picked up, not this time, not recently, but he's been stopped once at the airport and once at the border in El Paso, twice, because his name matched an illegal that they were trying to pick up, who was also a trafficker, a drug trafficker, and his name has matched both times. And so that tells me that they don't really necessarily have a picture to go off of. They're going off of names, and then if your name pops up on a database or a bank sheet or Instagram, Facebook, or something like this, that's how they're tracking people down. So I've been thinking about this a lot, because obviously this is a super hot topic. And as a person who is empathetic but also realistic, I'm trying to find that balance. I'm trying to find that balance between, this in this situation, because it is a crazy situation, but it's not really any different than any time before. Like the door-to-door stuff, the going into people's apartments, all that's been like typical. That's been typical tactics. That's been how they've done it before. Because again, I've been thinking about that. I'm like, how else would you do this job? This is a very different and a very particular job with a very particular job description or objective. You're looking for people who technically don't exist in the country. And so I've been thinking about like, what is the alternative? How else do you go about this? The one thing I keep coming back to, and it's the one thing that we are doing, they are offering an incentive to self-deport. 1.9 million people have self-deported as of last week or the week before when we looked it up. I think it was last weekend. Yeah, and Juan and Tomas's episode. 1.9 million people have self-deported. So they are offering an incentive for people to leave.
8% of the overall that had came in, and what was that, 20 in the 4 years?
Yeah, so I mean, it's not a lot, but it's not terrible for 1 year, phenomenal. Right? That's pretty good, right? Mm-hmm. And then 670,000 people have been forcefully deported via ICE. And what's coming out, the actual numbers, and I think this is why it's so important sometimes to really take a step back and, okay, how many videos of awful things am I seeing versus how many actual operations are taking place, right? And so allegedly, it is like 670,000 people have been deported and only 170 people have been detained mistakenly. Obviously, you'd like to see that number zero, but that puts you at a 99.97% efficacy rate. Whether or not that number is completely accurate, I'm sure plus or minus, most likely plus, but it's got to be somewhere in the ballpark. And that's pretty damn good. No one's talking about that. No one's talking about that. That's pretty fucking good.
People don't ever talk about the good times. But when it comes down to your statement of how else would we go about doing this?
Stay close to the mic. Not that close, but yeah. Relatively. Yeah, there you go.
All right. Yeah, so when it comes to the question of like, how else would we do it? I don't know. I think that it's the only way. I can't think of another way to get the job done in the way that it's being done. But I do believe that it does open up space for profiling. It does open up space for grouping people based on, race or creed. It does make those individuals feel uncomfortable just as well. So I think that there's there's the practical that it has to be taken care of, but there's also the, effect that it has on the communities where it's happening, because some of these people, like you said, have been in the country for many years. Maybe they're looking for a quota. It's not all criminals that are being deported at that point. Some of the people have been planted in the communities, and it affects, the community overall. The people who are here legally, as well as the people who are here, that have been there. Some of the people that have been there, maybe they've been here for a couple of years, but they're still getting, swept up in this whole situation. Maybe they should have done it, correctly from the beginning. But maybe they've been in the community and they've been a positive influence or a positive impact in the community. So them being pulled away from it has an effect overall. So it's a complicated situation, you know what I'm saying, to say the least. And at that exact same point, I have to realize that I don't have the answers to it all, so I can't attach myself to the situation as closely as a lot of people do, simply because I don't have the answers. And I know that regardless of how people feel about it, progress is being made. And they're getting closer to the goal that they set out to achieve, in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, right? People, the profiling part, for example. This Assad, I can't remember his last name, and she walked away, but Assad, he's a comedian at the Comedy Mothership. He does a lot of openings for all the big guys there. He's a traveling comedian now, super popular. He had a really funny bit about this, about profiling in general. He was like, I would be upset if TSA wasn't profiling me, right? He's an Indian dude, but he looks Muslim. And so he's, big black beard, black hair, and he's always talking about how he's always getting, stopped at the airport, And he has a really funny joke about it, because he was like, what? I mean, are they going to stop some dude named David? Like, you know what I mean? He's like, look at my name, look at what I look like. Of course, like, he's like, well, yeah, of course they're going to stop me. And he has a really good joke about it. And I think there is some truth to that, right? There are some things, where profile, like, you probably are going to profile a little bit, right? You're going to profile accents. You're going to profile potential skin tone. But even that, I don't think it's so much that, I mean, there is going to be aspects of it, but my buddy just had two of his Ukrainian buddies in Minnesota get picked up. So it's not just this whole, like, there's this narrative of, like, they're just going around terrorizing brown people. And it's like, okay, that's just not the case. Like, I've known Ukrainians to get picked up. I know there's all people, like, there's just all races. Anybody who's just here. Now, they were supposed to be here on a work visa, so they weren't supposed to be picked up. And so they did get released and given back, like, put back in their like house or whatever. Right. And so it is an interesting problem. I think we have been coddled so much in the US that when something like that, like when something gets too out of control, which illegal immigration did get too out of control. That's just the bottom, like, that's the fact. It got way too out of control. There was an open border. There was incentives in place to do this, whether it was, cheaper labor for big corporations, whether it was voting reasons, whether it was, more congressional seats, things like that. There was incentives put in place that incentivized an open border. And now there's someone here that's like, okay, we got to fix this problem. Well, you can't fix this problem with sunshines and rainbows. Like, this is not going to be a pretty thing. And one thing that Andy Frisella keeps bringing up is, like, throughout this whole thing, it's just like, look, everybody wants bacon, but they don't want to see how bacon is made. Like, they don't want to go out in the back. They don't want to go out back, butcher the pig, fillet it, do all the dressing, and then cook the bacon. No, they just want to go to the grocery store, grab the bacon, not think about how that process happens, go home and cook the bacon. And so now their hands are fine. They didn't have to do anything dirty, right? And so I think the more and more I think about the situation, is that's kind of where I lean more and more to, is that people want the bacon, but they don't want to see how it's made. And we've been so coddled here in America that when something like this does happen, it is very shocking. It's very uneasy. It's very sad, for the lack of better, like, it is sad, because we've been so comfortable. No one's ever invaded us. No one's ever attacked us. I mean, with the exception of 9/11 and various of other attacks, but usually done by someone here, right? But no one's, like, we've never been invaded like Ukraine is right now, right? We've never been attacked like France does all the fucking time. Like, France is constantly being attacked. We don't experience that here. And so we're very empathetic culture by nature, but we're also a very soft and coddled culture by nature as well. We largely have a system that mostly works. We vote in people, they win. The next people come up, we vote them in. If they win, that person in power leaves, the new person goes in. We've never had someone like a Maduro who said, oh yeah, y'all, I know y'all got 70% of the vote, but go fuck yourself. I'm staying here and I'm going to do this for 27 years. You know what I mean? So it's like, we've never experienced anything like that. And so there's all these people like, oh, you know, we have this fascist government. We're in fascism now. That is spoken from a true place of privilege. Because when I talk to people who have come here from other countries, especially my Ukrainian buddies, my South American buddies, Tomas and Juan that were on here last week, dude, they couldn't fucking disagree more. And I've also realized too that legal immigrants, they vehemently disagree with illegal immigration. And so it's mostly Americans who are so upset about it, not people who have come here from other countries legally.
I've definitely seen the same thing as well. And there's that selective outrage. We said that it was, these things are shocking. I think that it's almost less shocking because they happen. Like we see some of these things, and every time that at the moment it happens, it's all over social media. So you do see them frequently enough. But the moment that something happens, people they cling on to it for their own reasons, because it now supports their views or their belief or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just what makes those individual problems look even bigger. And it is a big thing. It is something to be discussed, and everything that we've seen recently is to be discussed. But the people who are in outrage right now because of what happened this past week, they were quiet when it was illegal immigrants that were harming American citizens. They weren't the ones that they weren't outraged the exact same way. So it's another complicated, it's a lot of situations that are going on right now. Like we're living through history. And it's very interesting to see how things are gonna unfold, be written about.
Yeah, it is interesting, right? It depends on who wins, right? So who wins this whole thing? Right now, I think the Republicans will lose the midterms, unless something drastically changes. Because even though logistically, it feels and seems like things are better, right? Like ended 2025 with the least amount of drug deaths, the least amount of homicides. My stocks are doing great. The economy feels good. I don't know if it's real. It just feels good, right? It feels like it's good. Gas prices are real down. There's things that are happening that feel good, but the issue is that optically, some things look so awful that they don't care, or people don't care about all those things I just mentioned, because some things look so optically bad, right? When an American citizen is detained by ICE, I would love to dive into the numbers and see how many times that has happened before. Because what I'm really enjoying right now, enjoying is a weird way to put it, but what is very enticing and very interesting to me right now is all these people digging through old footage of ICE from 2008 to 2016 and pulling the footage and pulling the tactics and pulling the politicians, the way that they present, the way that they talked about it, the way that CNN covered it. You know, it was definitely covered in a completely different light. It was covered in a very positive way. Like, go ICE. You're getting these illegals out of the community. It was covered in
based on who's in office.
Yeah, and it was Obama that was in office. And so it's very interesting to see how it was covered during the guy that created the detainment facilities, the cages, during his administration. It is very interesting to see how the media was very positive, very positively spun around it. The same tactics, door to door, checking people's papers, barging into people's apartments, guns pointed at kids. I've seen all the same videos, all the same images, all the same thing, but completely covered differently. And so that right now has been an incredible fascination of mine, because it is so, it's a constant, it's a reminder that the media is controlling how you feel and how you think. And it's not often reality.
I mean, if you think about every news station, just like we said, it's the opinions of the executives, which there's an owner that owns the whole thing. You know, there's somebody at the top of that company or that organization, and whatever is displayed on there is going to be in alignment with their beliefs and their views.
Well, it's going to be in alignment with the money.
With the money.
The money that's
just as
propping
well.
it up, right?
Yeah, I think I saw something that was like, historically, there are, what was it? See, I lost it. But it was like, historically, it talked about I don't know if it was donors to campaigns or donors to, it was where the money was at. But essentially it was a lot of the owners, the CEOs of these companies were backers of the Democratic Party. And it showed, like, over time, you know, I think even in the most recent race between Harris and Trump, they showed on this network whether the candidate was spoken about favorably or not, and the percentage of time to where there was a negative statement that was said versus the percentage of time to where, you know, there was something positive. And on the Democratic side, it was like 82% positive, and it was like 29% for Trump. So they're speaking the same thing, and it's across the networks. You know, obviously on Fox or different networks, they it's maybe it skews a different way, but there's a consistency that can be tracked over time when looking at those news networks and how they cover certain people. It has been happening. You know, ICE has been around, and I love seeing, and that's the thing. That's the reason why we just saw, I don't know if you saw, I think we talked about it. We just saw the video of Israel talking about, or of them speaking about what the most important next purchase was. And it was the social media platforms, you know, because we're able to compile
not just a social media platform, the only one that is truly free, at least, you know, 98% free. X. They're making a serious push to buy social media companies. I mean, dude, they've been saying the quiet parts out loud lately. Like one of the guys, one of these Israeli government guys or Israeli, like, I don't know, like buyers or whatever, he said something along the lines of, we're losing control of the narrative. Excuse me? And then you had this one, I saw a video of this woman talking about how the only reason why people are so against Israel and Gaza, or against Israel in what they're doing to Gaza, is because of social media companies. And it's like,
because the fact that you can actually go ahead and you can see what's happening.
Yeah.
You know? And not only that, is that you can go back 10 years, you can go on X and type in whatever subject, this person, this, and pull up a video from 10 years ago where they were saying the exact same thing that you're being critical of today. And that's when you start to realize that they're just playing us, bro.
Dude, there is not a better platform to find information than X. It is the leading news source across the world.
I don't pull news from there anymore, though. I used to spend a lot more time on there than I do now. And I don't, because I feel like there's a lot of bots on X. I feel like there's a lot of bots. I feel like there's a lot of like different things. But I definitely use it, and I'll go straight to it when it comes to I'm looking for this specifically. Like I'm trying to do my research and my background.
Do you think there's more bots on X than there is other platforms? Because I think it's just the internet. Do you know the dead internet theory?
No.
The dead internet theory is essentially, I'll butcher it, but in a very paraphrased way, it is the theory that the internet is not nearly as popular as we think it is. And that is, it is majorly bots. And it seems that way. Like, I do this thing where, so I will post my political commentary videos on TikTok. TikTok's probably super left-leaning, more so than other platforms. And I'll post things on there that, or maybe it was more of a conservative talking point or whatever it is. And dude, the amount of comments I get on TikTok compared to any other platform is crazy. Like views to comments is insane, dude. So Instagram, my political commentary views on average probably get like 700 to 1200 views. Nothing crazy, right? My podcast clips get way more than my political commentary stuff, right? But it'll get more views on Instagram than it will on TikTok. But on Instagram, it'll get likes and then almost no comments, like maybe 1 or 2 comments, but it's usually like y'all, like my friends, right? On TikTok, dude, it'll get the exact same amount of views or less, but it'll get like 50 plus comments. And what I'll do to try to try to see like who's bots and who's not is I will respond as quick as possible to the comment. And like not poking at them, not calling them names, literally just responding in like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. Tell me more, right? And I will say maybe 3 out of those 50 play ball. And that tells me that out of that, other 47, I would say at least half of those got to be bots. They have to be. Sure, there's probably some people that they just don't want to. They don't want to play ball, right? There's going to be a factor of people who don't want to play ball, but there's got to be at least half of those fuckers that are bots. There's no other way. And so in terms of like X, I'm less concerned about the bots, mostly because of the verified. Now, like the verified replies go to the top. But the reason why and to your point, right? Like if something happens, that's where I'm going first, because it's going to have more information on it quicker. It just does. Like there's just more people around the world posting on X than there are other platforms. You don't have to worry about it getting suppressed nearly as much. And the best part, dude, like you literally have an AI right there that you can at least cross-reference. Is this video real? Has this, if you see a statement or like a video, did this person, you can just in the comments at Grok, did this person actually say this? Can you find this actual video? Or is this either fake? Or is this a video that's just not like, it didn't happen, or it's being paraphrased, or it was cut, or it was altered, or whatever, right? And, people will be like, well, the AI is not going to be 100% correct. You're right.
I think that's dope to have, though. I see people use it, but I've never used that feature myself.
Oh, that's how I do it every time now. Because we're in a time where AI is crazy, right? Like there's so many videos and there's so many times where people send me something and I'm like, this isn't real. Because so like, especially on Instagram, I'll get a video. Maybe it's something that's really trying to like really irk a specific group, right? And I can tell that this video is really trying to poke someone's buttons. And I'm like, okay, this seems pretty outrageous. And so then I will try to find that exact video or at least someone talking about it on X. And if I go on X and maybe, say this Instagram post has been up for a couple days and I go on X and it's not on there at all, I'm going to assume that there's a very good chance that video is fake.
That's interesting. That's a good way to use it.
Because at least in my experience, I haven't been able to really not find something on X that I have found on other platforms. Typically, you're going to find something on X that you can't find on other platforms. Not usually the other way around. Would you say that that's been your experience?
Yeah, absolutely.
What up, y'all? I know I'm interrupting the conversation. I apologize, but I do need to quickly talk to you about Redmond Real Salt. I've been using this salt for a couple of years. I cook with this every single day. It is my absolute favorite salt in the entire world. And you now, as a What's Up Brodey listener, you can get 15% off by using the code Brodey, or on my Instagram in the bio, you can follow that link to checkout. You'll get 15% off as well. Now, back to the conversation.
Especially right now, yo. With this whole AI thing just as well, every single thing that I see, I got to take a double check.
Yeah.
I have to slow down and I have to actually try to, use my discernment to see, is this something that is true or is this something that's not? Is it even real? You know what I mean? So when I'm using X, I guess I'm being very just intentional. I'm going here for this reason because I can get caught up in
scrolling
just the information, you know what I'm saying? And then fact checking the information, you got to go back and fact check it just as well. And then there's, it is a place to where it is not censored in that sense. And with that being said, everybody just wants to insert their opinions. Yeah. And I just don't even have the bandwidth to think about their opinions. So,
yeah, but I think you bring up a good point because I think that's the reason why we should use it.
Okay.
Because you're not wrong. It's overwhelming. And if you scroll through Twitter long enough, it gets depressing, right? But not always. Sometimes there's really good things. However, though, this is what I've recognized, or this is what I've noticed, right? And it goes back to what you were saying. You don't necessarily want to hear those people's opinions. And I think that's why most people shy away from X. I think that's why most liberals in particular, went to Blue Sky, to their little safe space, their little comfort zone.
Blue Sky.
Because there's nobody there challenging their opinions. It's all just liberals all on one platform, which is an echo chamber, which is extremely dangerous, which is the same thing they were talking about with Truth Social and all those, but I digress. Twitter. So the conclusion that I've come to recently is that Instagram is a bunch of normal people yelling at each other through other people's posts. It's rarely someone getting on there and actually using their own voice, attached to their own face, attached to their own name. They're usually reposting someone's shit-talking meme, or they're reposting someone else's video, or they're reposting someone else's text, or something like that. And all that's happening is you have the right yelling at the left through other people's posts, and then you have the left yelling at the right through other people's posts. None of which is causing any kind of dialogue, none of which is creating conversations, all of which is completely dividing us even more. But then you go over to Twitter and it's still like that. However, it's people posting their own opinions, their own thoughts, And then you go into the comments and you see people who are verified and with the check mark, who are on one side or the other or down the middle, responding to those thoughts, and sometimes with real thoughts, like real counter ideas. And so when you go through that thread on that post, there is a higher chance, nothing's perfect, there is a higher chance that you are seeing an actual discussion, actual discourse. And they might still be yelling at each other. That is completely possible. But it's two people attached to their name using their thoughts. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like,
I think one of the things, one thing that it drives me crazy. I laugh at it at this point. But you ever seen those people on Instagram who they go to other people's comments or other people's posts to argue in the comments? They write a long, drawn out explanation. They're screaming at the other party. But then if you try to go to respond to them, they have their privacy set to where if you're not their friend, you can't respond. So it's like they go there, they're this is what you're going to hear. This is my opinion, but I don't want to hear anything back whatsoever. So I definitely agree with you, on that. You're more likely to see a true conversation, maybe real debate, maybe something more in detail over X, which makes it a great resource. But I try to even still use it as just a resource. I don't scroll for that reason, because now the fact that it is more detailed and there is more information and you can still get caught up, in it. So I go to it, but I'm trying to do so more so now with a higher level of intention.
yeah.
Even as I explore the platforms and use the resources that are there and the check marks and the verified and everything within it, man, I'm trying to be very intentional with like social media usage now, because every single year they come out with a new platform. Sometimes you don't even sign up for the platforms now. You got Instagram, they automatically set you up with the threads now. Now you automatically have this.
Yeah, I've never used it.
I like it for some reasons. There's different things, but it's just like, now you're talking about blue. I'm like, I've never even heard of Blue Skies, whatever this is, but there's so many different ways that your focus is being spread out across this, or this, and every single time that you log on to a social media platform, you don't necessarily know what your focus is going to be taken by. You don't know. Not even that you don't know. The moment you get on there, the first thing that's there, your eyes have been drawn to that, for at least a moment. And I'm just trying to I feel like that's a part of what we have to be able to kind of break free from at this point in time, to even be able to think clearly and to see things clearly, to be able to discern for ourselves whether something is true or fake. A lot of people, they're going to stay away from X because they're not actually really looking for, you said that you'd rather go to X because you're more likely to find real discourse or the truth, a real conversation, what's actually going on. That's not what everybody wants though. And I'm realizing that there's a large group of people who that's not their intention whatsoever. Some people, they just want something. They want to feel like community. So even if they're just angry about something, they just want to be angry with my people. You know what I mean? They're not going to X to say, damn, you know what? Maybe I thought about that wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe there is another angle to this video. Their brain starts to explode.
They don't want to know.
Not
everybody wants to know. Everybody, again, but that goes back to what I was saying about the bacon. People are comfortable and they don't like that, because I have respectfully entered people's DMs when they post something going, hey, this is not entirely true at all. This is actually poorly represented completely, and here's why. And the amount of people who just don't respond is way higher than the amount of people that do respond. Or if someone does respond, it's usually with like some kind of name calling or some kind of belittling. And it's like, got it. Okay. My bad. I won't waste your time no more. My bad, man. I realize who I'm speaking to now, right? And, to point just a second ago about people posting things and then be private. Man, dude, we have mutual friends who virtue signal into the ethos with a couple hundred followers, not even, on private pages. And I've been thinking about this. This is another thought that I've been thinking about a lot, because I'm like, what is the point of this then? Because we share this many mutual followers. You have this many followers. I know people who have muted you. And so who are you talking to then? Like, what are you getting from that? Because now I see people spiraling. And I mean spiraling, where I'm like, dude, you might be a potential harm to yourself. You might be a potential harm to society. And you're spending all day long on social media reposting things onto your story, and to no one. And so if you really wanted to create this awareness, wouldn't you repost them to a public story to where more people could see this? Because again, isn't the point you're trying to convince people you're correct. You're trying to convince people that this is the way to look at it, right?
I don't think so.
No, it's not. It's not. But I'm saying, isn't that kind of the point, right? Like, when I post something about health, I'm trying to help you, right? I'm trying to be like, hey, this is another alternative way to live. You should try this because this might work for you too, because this clearly works for me and I have the numbers to back it up, this, and this. And so when I'm posting things like that, when I'm posting, talking about the food pyramid being turned upside down, or I'm talking about, whatever else it is, or if I'm posting my meals and doing things like that, I am trying to help someone, right? I'm trying to create awareness that, hey, maybe some of the things that we've been told nutritionally and medically aren't fully correct. Maybe there is alternatives. Maybe there is other ways to live that would be better for you, right? And so when I see these people posting all these things on Instagram, whether it's ICE, whether it's Israel and Gaza, whether it's left-wing stuff, right-wing stuff, isn't the goal to try to convince someone that you're right? Like, why else are you doing this then?
I don't know if it's always that they're trying to convince, because think of like what you just said. Imagine unless you're just really not thinking that through whatsoever. I think that's the funniest thing ever, to have a page that's on private, that it cannot be shared, but I'm going to be constantly sharing. That can't be purposed towards trying to get that message out to the broader audience. You have to be trying to cause discord within that community that you already have there or something. Like, you have to want to, maybe.
So what are you doing?
Wasting your time.
Get off then. Go outside. Because these people who are posting these things are clearly largely depressed. They are spending entirely too much time on social media. Their algorithm is completely designed to get this reaction. If you're posting 10, 14, 15 different things on your stories, all different outraged articles and negative articles, that means that's your entire algorithm, which that means that's your entire life. Go outside, please, for your own sake. Because what else are you doing? You're not changing the world. No one can see your shit. You're not changing anything. So why even put yourself through that? I don't get it.
I think that people like to feel attached to something. They like to feel something, whether they're feeling good or bad, they're feeling something, in that. People like to be angry, despite how, and it's like, that's a crazy thing to think about or to say, but people like to have themselves attached to something that, elicits that level of emotion. Anger is a very strong emotion.
Do you think that's trying to fill a void that something else is lacking?
I think that they're trying to feel something.
Because we don't feel that way. And you have something that you're very passionate. You have lots of things that you're very passionate about. I have lots of things that I'm very passionate about. We don't crave that same kind of energy. So is it the lack of passion in something, or do they think that this is their passion? Like, but if this was your passion, you would be on a public page, putting your face in front of it with your name and your voice. If that was your passion, right? Like, you would then, if you're trying to make a true change.
In reality, those people, I mean, the more that you say it, they may not even truly take pride in that perspective that they're holding. Maybe they don't even believe it themselves. Maybe they don't want the broader audience or people outside of this private group to see what they're saying in the first place, because they're not truly even aligned with their own belief.
That's fascinating.
You know, they could be conflicted in that. And that could be part of the problem.
That's fascinating, because I'm sure there's a select amount of them that's exactly it. So then why are you posting it like crazy?
I couldn't tell you.
For the 5 people that like it, I don't understand. It's interesting. Circling back to the X thing though, and this will tie into talking about you. I think it's an untapped market for you and what you do. I think that you would find far more people who are interested in you, interested in what you have to say, and interested in what you're offering on X. So it's surprising to me that you don't use that platform more, because I feel like there'd be more people on there that would agree with you. You wouldn't have to worry about stuff being censored or not being seen or not being shown. And I think that then there's even a bigger market for you on there when you do your live shows and when you do things like that, also going live on X.
Man, so I have been on I've been on the platform for over 10 years, since before 2016, you know, on Twitter. And I used to use it very actively. I think, honestly, I just got burnt out on social media.
Yeah.
There's so many different platforms, and there's a different algorithm for each and every single one of them. And as you try to figure out the algorithm for each and every single one of them, there's a time cost to that. I love the fact that what I've been able to do now, or at least across some of them, is you can duplicate the same content across all of the platforms, and it makes it simple enough. But I think that's a good idea, going live on Twitter just as well. You know, I'm not a social media marketer. Like, the strategies in that are things that have been, you know, I've been thinking about how to utilize the platforms little by little. I've been going live on TikTok, you know, doing different things like that. That's been successful. That's been pretty well. Doing YouTube's private, you know, calls, things like that. But I definitely could probably think about how to utilize X just as well.
Yeah, I just think I think there would be a lot of people who want to hear what you think and what you have to say and what you have to offer on there. I think more so than Instagram. I know TikTok's been pretty successful with a lot of people just because the interaction on TikTok is like nothing else. There is no other platform that gets the same kind of interaction. Again, my interaction, views to interact, like engagement is crazy on TikTok. Right.
How often do you post?
Just about every day.
That's the thing. I think that, and that's what I've been hearing just as well. TikTok rewards like consistency, you know, in regular posting. When I started going live, it was a small trickle of people that were coming in, but doing it every day for a week, you know, a couple of days, then that's when I started seeing the numbers increase on TikTok, at least. But the way that I've been doing it since I stream, it's long form content every time, you know, so going an hour and a half, 90 minutes per day on there, sometimes that gets a little tiring for me. So trying to find a balance between that, trying to figure out when to stream on X versus TikTok versus all the different platforms is always overwhelming to me. Like, it's not one of my favorite parts about everything. I get burnt out of social media often, even though I use it very regularly. And I end up having to take time to where I just, step away from it, silence the noise. I think that it's important to like be able to silence the noise. There's so much noise, bro. And, as we spoke about it, a lot of the noise is intentionally triggering, right? A lot of the noise is intentionally triggering. From the noise that's intentionally triggering, there is another level of the noise from the people who are now responding to what's intentionally triggering. And then there's so many different ways that your focus can go just through social media. So I'm trying to be more intentional. And I know that at this point in time, it's become such an important part of our lives in general. We're so used to it. But for me, what I've had to do, and it's been one of the biggest blessings ever, is a real purge of my social media platforms.
Tell me about it. Like how so?
Well, so when I was in college, some years ago, I was about 10 years ago, maybe 7 to 10 years ago, I wanted to use my social media platforms for business. So I wanted to grow my social media platforms. The way that I used to do it back in the day was I would follow people, right? Follow for follow. You follow me, I follow you back. You don't follow me, I go and I unfollow. What ends up happening is that I built a good platform, but I also had like over 3,000, 4,000 people that I was also following at that point. Those 4,000 people are people that I connected with them because I wanted to work with them or, whatever the case may be, but they may not be aligned to, my beliefs or my views or, anything of that nature. They may be the ones that are reposting all of the triggering and, dramatic, things. Maybe that's what they focus on. But because of the fact that I added them or I have them on my platform, now I'm constantly being subject to that. And there were so many people. So what I did was I unfollowed about 3,000 people. I got that number under 1,000. And there were people that were intentionally chosen. Every single person that I followed was somebody who was intentionally chosen for me to follow them. I respect you. We built a relationship. Maybe I haven't met you, but you're always posting something that's positive, that's more aligned. There's the different subjects. It's such a beautiful platform because anything that you want to learn, you want to learn about fitness, you can follow within that area. And it can be positive things that are now being poured back into you. You want to learn about martial arts, you can follow pages that speak about, martial arts or speak about your stretching or your routines in that, your eating, the things around there. So you can curate your platform so that all the content that's coming to you are things that are supporting you in what you're doing. The only problem that I have, and I think I've said this a few times from X to Instagram, the only thing that I have an issue with is not being intentional with it, not being on purpose. I think that when we approach things and we don't do it from a place of intention, then we leave ourselves subject to the direction of the world. You know what I mean? We're not the ones steering the ship. We're being steered by whatever it is that we see when the screen opens. And I feel like I've been in a season over the past, couple of years to where I've just been a lot more sensitive to everything. You know what I mean? And I believe that we have to guard our eyes. They say that your eyes are the gateway to the heart. You know what I'm saying? So you got to guard your eyes. You got to protect yourself in that. So as I protect myself, there's certain things that I don't see, so I'm not influenced by that. And I try to be I try to do that on purpose. You know what I mean? Because we're always being influenced.
Yeah.
And social media is the way that most people are being influenced by what they see, what they hear. If we can we can't control everything, can't control the world.
Yeah.
But if you can control what you see on your screen, then you have at least some advantage.
Yeah, we're in an interesting time where someone in Arizona can be pissed off about something that happened to someone in Maine. That was never the case 30 years ago. Someone in Arizona didn't give a fuck about something that was going on in Maine, right? Like, I don't think that we have evolved to handle what is happening, because we now can take in everyone's pain across the entire world instantaneously, all simultaneously as well.
It's crazy because you can take in everyone's pain and no one's pain at the same time.
Yeah.
Because now you can know what's happening in, a foreign country and across the world, or, from Arizona to Maine. But then people don't know their neighbors. They don't know the person that's right next door to them.
It's really interesting. That's a great point.
You can be in a small environment for a period of time, or whatever the case may be. And it's also probably contributed, to by, the rental culture. People have to rent just as well. So they're only in a place for a year, 2 years, and then they're moving. Mm-hmm. So they're not taking the time to meet the people that are around them. But again, we don't know about or concern ourselves with the problems and the issues of our next door neighbor, but we're focused on what's happening in the next state, the next country, the next
that has
continent.
Almost no effect on you. Literally almost zero actual effect. It has clearly an emotional effect because we see people's mental health just deteriorating because of it. And to your point, in reality, none of those things really matter. Like, knowing who your neighbor is, that's the person who can impact your life very directly. Your neighbor could come over to your house and rob you. Your neighbor could be your best friend. Your neighbor could help you out in a pinch. Like, your neighbor is the person who can do so much for you, or even potentially so much against you, depending on who that person is. And we don't know who the fuck they are. And it's interesting because today, so we go to the farmer's market every Saturday. Today was interesting. Today there was even more sense of craving of conversation from people. Like, I'm a pretty talkative person, clearly. I have no problem talking to people. If someone stops me and asks me a question or whatever, or they say something, say a comment or whatever, I'm going to engage. Like, that doesn't bother me. And today there was an even more than usual amount of people stopping and talking to me. You could feel the fact that there are so many people craving actual conversation. You can start to feel more and more people getting burnt out on social media. More and more people caring less and less. More and more people craving this, right? We've been on the podcast game for a while, listening to podcasts. It's the greatest form of entertainment. It doesn't provide that same level of outrage or that same level of anxiety. It's much more slow drip. It's much more digestible, right? It doesn't trigger that same thing that a 45-second clip does, because we're sitting here and we're having a long conversation. Like earlier, we're talking about ice. That was a 30-minute drawn-out conversation. It was there's lots of different points being thrown around. If someone clips a small point of that, a part of that, that might cause outrage. But if you listen to the entire thing, you'd be like, now I can actually see, okay. So there's actually, there's this point of view here, and then there's this point of view here, and then, oh, wow, that is tricky. How would I do it? Right? And today at the farmer's market, man, there was just more and more people. And the one thing that I thought was super interesting was, so we're walking back to the car, and so we had the baby, we had the stroller, and this lady who was pregnant says, oh my God, I've been looking at that stroller. How do y'all like that? And so I'm like, we're telling her about how we like the stroller, the things that we like, da 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 da. And she was like, I'm so sorry to bother y'all. Afterwards. And I'm like, bother? All you did was, you were having a conversation with another human. Why? And so I was like, why did she feel that urge inside her to apologize for just having a conversation with another human out in public? And I was like, dude, you can people are craving it. They want to talk to people. They are tired of talking through a screen. They are waking up and realizing how fucking awful it is. How awful it is. And I thought it was just really interesting because it was, not only were there multiple people who, like more than usual, stopping to talk to us, but then people oddly like apologizing because they did stop to talk to you.
I do think that's interesting. I think that there's cycles of things, you know, and I think that we're going back to a place to where that is, you know, that kind of conversation and community is craved. You know, I was watching this. There was this like Instagram reel that came up, and it talked about kids in the 90s. You would go out and play at this time, you know, beginning of the day, 11 o'clock, and you would come back home when the sun was going down, when the street lights went on, you know, or whatever the case may be. You were out and you were, you know, connected. And then we've gone through a long period of time to where people have been disconnected. And I think even coming through COVID, I think that was the tipping point. I think that was a point to where already you didn't know your neighbors, but now you can't even go to your friends and your family. You're in a point to where you felt even more disconnected, only forced to communicate through the screen. Mm-hmm. And I think after that, you know, people have come back to a place to where they do crave, you know, genuine interaction, conversation, communication. And I think that in that case, you know, it might just be someone who, you know, she saw the stroller and she just struck a conversation, but you're consistent there, you know, at the farmer's market. You know, whether they might not have talked to you before, but they probably seen you across the space, and they've seen you and they've seen you and they've seen you, and they've got so comfortable with you because now you, whether they know you or not, you're a part of the community. You know what I mean? Like that's a part of your, you know, your network, or however you would say it. But I think that that's amazing that they would feel comfortable to come and, you know, have that conversation, ask for why they apologize afterwards.
It's interesting.
I think that people are so used to minding their own bit. I don't know if it's a Texas thing, but I definitely feel it like out here, like that people are very used to like, they mind their own business. They're very respectful, but they'll stay in their own lane. You know, they'll take care of their family, their friends, the people that they know. And maybe that's just my experience, you know, because I haven't been here that long and I haven't seen everybody. But, you know, I've definitely had similar experiences of people feeling like it was a bother just to do something that should be, you know, normal.
It's normal, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, and, you know, sure, I think there's an aspect of that, like minding your own business type of thing. But, like, if you're out at a farmer's market, that's just largely kind of communal in the sense, right? Like, that's just kind of its nature. I think, you know, I don't think you should feel like you're bothering somebody by striking up a conversation, you know? And it was just interesting. And I'm not, like, saying she was weird, or I'm saying it's just, it was a genuine observation of mine because I just thought it was super, because the conversation was very pleasant. Mm-hmm. We both, Taylor and I, were engaging in her and giving her feedback based on the stroller that she was inquiring about. And it was very positive. We're smiling, we're making eye contact, we're talking back and forth. And then at the end of the conversation, she was like, "I'm so sorry for bothering you." So like you could tell that she was feeling anxious, or if she had this feeling like, even though it's very obvious that you're not bothering us, we're making eye contact, we're smiling, we're answering your questions in great detail, even though she knew we weren't, or that she wasn't bothering us, there was still something, a trigger that made her feel like she had to say that. And that, it was almost sad, because she shouldn't have had to have felt that way. Like, what made her feel that way? And, you know, it's social media, right? Like, it has to largely be that, right? And to your point, like, not knowing your neighbors. And so maybe there's like a little bit of guilt. Maybe there's a little bit of, I don't know. I've been thinking about it all morning because I thought it was really interesting, because she wasn't the only person that did that. She wasn't the only person who apologized.
So there were more people that approached you, but even in doing that, they opened up the door for more apologies. Do you feel like anything about you changed in how you walked through the farmer's market? Were you in a good mood today so people approached you? Were you walking around with a smile on, or was there?
I don't think anything different.
It's just something that you feel like people collectively are seeking out in terms of.
That's what it felt like today. You could almost feel it in the air. Like when these people were talking to you, you could almost feel their craving, their desire to just have any sort of conversation, any of like just a little bit, just a touch of it. Just be like, please, just amuse me for 5 seconds. It was interesting because I've been going to the farmer's market for quite some time, and I personally always talk to, all the vendors that I go to. I know them all very well. Some of them are coming on the podcast. I know the vendors. I know who they are. I've been buying from them for 5+ years, so I know them. And so I'm always talking to people. And so maybe there's that. Maybe it's like what you brought up earlier, where maybe they see you there constantly and then they feel more comfortable because they just recognize you. And even though they don't know you, they feel like you're a part of the community. I think that's a very interesting observation and a way to put it as well. But what I thought was just very interesting was just the fact that it was very obvious that we had a positive conversation, but there was still something in her that still told her, apologize for bothering them, even though you're not bothering them.
How do you feel that you're, okay, cool. So let's say that there's something going on there. There's something psychological that's happening in that group of people who feel that they want to approach, so they want to have the conversation, but at the exact same point, now they feel some kind of guilt for starting the conversation just as well. We don't know the answer to that, but what do you feel like you're in your response? Because the way that you responded to them, I'm sure, is you weren't bothering me at all. It was a great conversation.
Yeah.
It was pleasant talking to you. Open. You're probably warm, smiling. Whatever the case may be. How do you feel that receiving responses like that when they've now tried to make the approach, right? They've tried to approach somebody. They felt that guilt, but then the person that they felt guilty about interrupting, now goes and tells them. It was great talking to you. Do you think that it gives them more confidence to continue having those conversations out in public?
I hope so, right? Because here's the reality, dude. If we don't start doing that again, it's going to get ugly. And there's a lot of people that will not stomach what will happen on the other side of this. If this continues to go down this road where we keep dividing so hard and the violence continues and the shooting begins, there are going to be a lot of people that cannot stomach that. They don't really understand what that entails. They've seen it in movies. They've seen it in shows. They do not understand. I don't even understand what that would entail. You need to know how to fend for yourself. You need to know how to defend yourself. Do you know how to cook meat? Do you know how to hunt? Do you know how to dress an animal? Do you know how to raise crops? You think when the shooting begins and the revolution starts that you're still going to be going to H-E-B? Like you're still going to go to the grocery store? That's not how this works. And so people need to realize what the fuck is on the other side of this. You're not going to H-E-B unless your side owns a certain H-E-B and the other side owns another H-E-B, and you can go to this one, but you can't go to this one. Okay, maybe that's how it starts at first, but that's not how that continues on. It doesn't just stay like that for forever, where we just draw this magical line and everybody on the right moves over here and then everybody over the left moves over here. And it's like, okay, just don't cross this line. We'll go to these grocery stores. Y'all go to this grocery store, and it's segregation all over again, right? And that's not how that works. If that shit starts off, dude, how are you going to eat? Where are you going to get your food from? You've been so coddled. You go to the grocery store. You don't even understand where half of that food even comes from. You don't even understand the process. You don't understand anything about it. You have no idea how to build a fire. You have no idea to build a shelter out in the woods. Like, you don't know how to do these things. You probably don't even own a firearm. And so it's like, what do you think actually happens if this revolution takes place? Like, how do you think that actually looks, right? Like, wake the fuck up. We have to continue to have conversations, because if we don't, what's on the other end is awful. It's awful. And a lot of people will die. A lot.
That got dark real quick. It is
but
real,
it's
though.
the fucking reality, dude.
It is real though, man. And there's it's frustrating because I feel like the same people who will sit in the outrage and they say that they want, this change, that their change does require some friction. It's friction now or friction later. Sometimes we're feeling the friction right now. But they're also the ones that are not preparing. The ones that are complaining now are not preparing, I should say. And unfortunately, that's just, I guess it's just the way that it goes. You know what I'm saying? Like, and there is, you can't save everybody. You can't help everybody. Some people, they want to stay in the echo chamber. They just want to, like I said, they want to be angry. They want to be mad. They want to feel attached to something. They want to sit down and they want to just hear their selves, speak, but they're not taking the actions to do anything about it. They're not going to change anything
Or they're just reposting other people's thoughts and opinion that resonates with theirs, instead of actually talking about their own opinion. They're like putting their name on it. It's like what was going on during COVID, where they just kept saying, the experts say. Well, the experts say. Well, the experts say. Is it the same expert that was just in the congressional hearing that couldn't admit or can't tell you that a man can't get pregnant? Is it that same expert? Because,
well, in reality, statistically, if you say the word statistically before you give your statement, people will believe it more.
Yeah, sure.
I probably just made that up, or maybe I heard it somewhere. But experts say,
dude, people. It worked. Largely, it worked. It'll never work again, but it largely did work.
Things that and we've seen different examples like this over time. There were experiments that were done to where they had a group of people, 3 people that were a part of the experiment and 1 person that was the outlier. And all of the people agreed with something that was clearly wrong, and they just followed along with it. We saw things during COVID that just didn't make sense. One thing, I think you reposted it just the other day. I'll never forget it, yo.
The French fries?
The French fries.
20 years from now, they're going to say that shit was AI, bro.
They're going to say that was AI, that didn't really happen. That they didn't say, oh, so you get this burger, you vaccinate yourself, you get this burger.
French fries?
And there's a side of fries with that? I think he said there's an element of fries with that. Oh, yeah?
Bro.
Okay.
Or the fact that the White House put on their website that if for the unvaccinated, it's going to be a cold, dark winter full of death, which didn't happen.
Nope.
Never happened. It couldn't have been more wrong. People who continue to get the vaccine continue to get sicker.
Bro, that's why I stopped trying to. I don't be on social, bro. I literally, because you see me, I was very engaged, like during the political season. Like I wanted to see what direction we were going to go into, and I had a preference on which direction I wanted us to go into, and I still stand beside that. However, after that period of time, when the decision's been made, I disconnected from that because I'm not trying to prove to nobody or explain to nobody or go back and forth with anybody. Like I'm not on any of it anymore, honestly.
Do you think that's a net positive or a negative for you and society?
Elaborate.
Because when I hear that, I think man, that's really good, right? I bet you your mental health is way better. You're probably feeling a lot better. But I think societally, that could be a detriment. And I mean that by, I believe that you have a very reasonable stance. You have a very reasonable outlook on life. It's a very mixture of empathy and realism. And I think that people like yourself, I would say I'm in that boat, like myself, we need to now be louder than ever before.
Absolutely.
Because we're in a way maybe the only thing that can glue the sides back. And that's a lot of fucking pressure, right? Yeah. I go back and forth between I want to pack everything up and go to Costa Rica and say, fuck all of you. Y'all can kill each other. Fuck you. And if I stop, and it's not just me, but anybody, any of us that thread this line who don't associate themselves or label themselves this or that, yeah, we might lean a certain way. We might have certain, this was actually, we have certain morals and beliefs that we believe in. And then there are politicians or politics that come along that meet those morals and beliefs. But those morals and beliefs don't really change necessarily. And the politicians could change. It could be someone on the left that meets those morals and those beliefs where we're like, fuck yeah, I'll get behind you. And then it just so happens right now, it's largely Republicans who meet those morals and beliefs at the moment, right? But that doesn't mean that's going to be the case in 5 years. The Democratic Party could wake the fuck up and realize that socialism, stop this socialism bullshit, stop dying on these ideological hills, stop going in front of Congress and just arguing about whether or not a man can get pregnant, stop dying on these stupid ass hills, right? Come back to reality, come back to common sense, and really start to have conversations again, right? And so right now, we have core beliefs and core morality that makes us at the moment lean right. But again, that's subject to change. I think the reason why our voice is important is because we can criticize both sides because we're not attached to a side, right? But what you're seeing is people do not have beliefs or values. They have teams and they believe what their team believes. And that's where you get these outrage posts. And that's why these outrage posts work. And so as much as I agree with you full-heartedly, Brandon and I were talking about this where we feel almost this obligation where who else then?
And I have also I battle with that just as well, especially now, more so now than ever. But it's just like, do you get your stuff together and take care of yourself? You could do that offline, disappear, or do you go ahead and you share the things that you learn? I think that there's an important balance there, first and foremost. And then it's also how much responsibility am I willing to take over everybody else? I think that the way that what I believe is that we can't control anybody. We can't save anybody. We can't convince anybody. All we can seek to do is to influence people. Can we not convince people though? No, we can influence people. You can't convince somebody.
Eventually.
You can convince somebody. But the thing about that is even in order to convince somebody, they have to be open and willing to even hear or understand or to be told that they're wrong.
So what do you think the amount of percentage of people who actually feel that way? Like who actually aren't willing? Like what do you think the percentage is of people who wouldn't be willing to sit down and have a conversation?
70%.
70%.
The majority.
You think 70%?
Yep.
That is depressing as fuck.
I think the majority of people are are and obviously statistically speaking, you know what I'm saying? But I believe that the majority of people, they really feel as they've been in a place to where whether it's something that they like or dislike, they're comfortable with their belief, right? Whether they believe it to be this way, they think that it is this way, they're comfortable with that belief. A lot of people will form their whole identity around that belief, and they'll stay there in order to be comfortable. If you think about it and you start to eliminate people based on percentages, there's going to be a large amount of people who fall into that category of just they want to be heard. They want to tell you what they feel, but they don't want to actually, they don't want any friction. They'll just avoid the friction just in that. I feel like there's a lot of people that even as you start to see the moment that, and just to use this video that we saw last week, the moment that the first video comes out, everybody's drawn their conclusion. They don't need any more evidence. They're not seeking the truth. I don't think that people are seeking the truth. Not everybody. I don't think that a lot of people are genuinely seeking.
You think 70%?
I think 70%. That's just what I throw out. And I think that people that are open to having the conversation might be maybe 15%. Maybe the other 30% are open to having the conversation. But the moment that their beliefs or their views are questioned, they also shut down. If we think about everybody who's actually hearing it, having the conversations, and then making changes or changing because the thing is that I think the reason why it's so difficult is that people are operating from a belief system. This is something that is like, if you think about a tree, there is the fruit, there's the leaves, there's the branches, there's the trunk, there's the roots. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes in these conversations, it's the roots that are being questioned, which is like something that's so deep for people that they are not willing to do that work. They're not willing to look at themselves and say, or even ask the question. Some people are not even willing to say, is there a possibility that I was wrong? There's a group of people right now, children that are being raised, that they get anything that happens, they get their way. They're not told that they're wrong. They're not disciplined. They're not corrected in that. And what happens is they grow up and they become people that can't take criticism. They can't be told that they're wrong. They're not even open to hearing it.
Why do you think that is? As a parent yourself, why do you think people choose to parent their kid like that? Because you're definitely spot on. There's definitely a percentage of the population that is parenting in just that fashion.
It's the path of least resistance. It's the easiest thing to do when your child is going through something and needs to be corrected, to give them something else to just calm them in the moment, to give in to what they're screaming about or what they're fussing about or what they're fighting about. Give them the iPad and tell them be quiet and go play the game. People don't have a lot in the tank. So it all ties in together, honestly, because I feel like right now we talked about social media and the impacts, the effects. And we're like, yeah, being on social media, going to these platforms, there is a mental and a psychological and a spiritual, I believe, pull on you constantly. You're constantly being influenced. You're constantly being impacted. And the fact about that is whatever you're putting energy into, the opportunity for you to pour that energy into somewhere else is taken away. You only have 100% to give.
Yeah.
Anything that I give to social media, I'm taking away from maybe my family or maybe my child or whatever the case may be. So if I'm allowing work to drain me, maybe work drains me. I'm tired at the end of the day. Then maybe my partner, my spouse, there was a draining situation, whatever case may be. Then I'm on social media, world events, drain. How much are you pouring left into your kids? Like what's left? Are you going to correct them in this situation? Or are you just going to hush them, give them something to settle down for now, which, of course, is going to contribute to who they become, which is the craziest thing about it. Now they don't know how to be told no. They don't know how to, be criticized or they don't know how to receive any of these things, So I think that I think that the change has to start with us. Obviously right now there is a higher level of consciousness that we're seeing. We're seeing people that are, like you said, like people are waking up people are able to see things on social media and understand what's happening out here. And they're starting to ask more questions, which I believe is phenomenal. But I believe that we're going to see the generation of kids, they talked about, there was a study that they talked about, or when they looked at the kids that they were supposed to be in school during COVID and that period of separation, to where for years they lost that social connection that they would have received while they were in school. And they talked about the mental health deterioration. We're going to see how all of these things affect that group of people, as well as the groups that come afterwards. But in regard to, this next generation, I feel like the change starts with us, and us being conscious and intentional, and doing what is required, to build the next generation of, little people that will be the future, of this country.
Yeah, I think you said something super important there, that the change starts with us. And it does. It starts with you. Like, that's the only way. It's something that Andy Frisella preaches. Personal excellence is the ultimate form of rebellion. And there was, Brandon and I were talking about this. Like, I actually talked about this 2 episodes ago with Ernest as well. Like, it starts with you. If you imagine if everyone in your community is striving to be the greatest possible version of themselves, that community will be exceptional, right? And when people talk about marginalized communities, when people talk about minorities, or when people talk about, other, freaking incest white people in West Virginia, pick whatever community that isn't striving or isn't thriving in that area. And yeah, sure, could they be helped more? Yeah, absolutely. I think we could always help somebody else more. But to your point, the people also there have to take a second to take a step back and be like, okay, what can I do to be the best version of myself, to ensure that everyone else in this community, or to ensure that I'm the best person that I possibly can be in this community, and hope that the other people around me also follow suit, right? Because it's contagious.
It absolutely is. And I love that you said that, because I believe that, how did you say it a second ago? I believe that we're called to be the light, that we're called to be, to be loud, in that sense, that we're called to be the example, we could be on social media screaming at people of what they should do and what's right and what's wrong. But the biggest example that they're going to see is when they look at your life, when they look at who you are, when they look at who you are, how you change and how you become, and just like your ability to find peace and joy in, uncertain times. If we look at it, we speak about the social media conversation. There are people who we're all going through uncertain times. There are certain people who are taking it on head on, and they are working to become the best version of themselves in that process. They're looking for every available opportunity. And then there's the people that are just screaming about it, that are just mad, not taking action. There are people who, and I love it. Like it's, I don't love it for them, but it's everything that we see in the world, they're all clear, like indicators of direction, of what's happening. People are outraged. People are screaming about Elon Musk, and Tesla is overvalued and it's going to zero, and this company is such and such, he's a Nazi and such and such. Guess what? The moment you hear the outrage in that from the majority of people, that is when it is typically your time to buy. It's your time to do the opposite. One of my early mentors, what he told me was, he said to study the masses and to do the opposite. Quickest way to success. You know what I'm saying? If there's 95% of people that are going to fail and 5% of people will be successful, that's what they say when they, 95 or 93%, whatever it may be. If that's the situation, then the only reason why I need to be on social media looking outside at everybody else is so that I am not doing what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? So that I'm doing the opposite of what it is that they're doing. So
It's a reminder.
it's a reminder
Yeah.
constantly.
Yeah.
Constantly study the masses and do the opposite. And I think that even through the uncertain times, that there's ways for us to find joy. You know, there's ways for us to prepare. There's ways for us to take action. And I think that as long as we have hope in that, the people that are preparing themselves, it's because they have hope. You know what I mean? The ones that are just screaming and they're outraged and they're just angry, sometimes they've lost that already.
Yeah, it's true, because a perfect example of that is like, look, 2025, you can feel however you want about the president, about who won, about the party that's in charge, however you want. I don't give a fuck. You can feel however you like to feel. However, all that screaming, you could have been making money off of it. You could have took your emotions out of it, because 2025 was an incredible year in the stock market.
Bro, it didn't
Incredible.
It didn't matter what market. Think about this, bro. Like you could have been blindfolded. You could have blindfolded a monkey and said, throw it at this dartboard with different investments. Think about the investments. We'll talk about, say, Bitcoin, right? Say the stock market, right? Say gold and silver, precious metals, all of them. Gold is trading at all-time highs. Stocks are trading at all-time highs. Bitcoin reached all-time highs, is still trading at the highs of, I believe, is higher than where it started off last year or in 2024. Like, it didn't matter what you did as long as you didn't not do anything.
Exactly.
You would progress.
And that's your point. There's just a bunch of people doing nothing because they're allowing it to drain their battery, because they're pouring so much emotion and so much soul, and they're trying to take on the world. They're trying to take on the world's problems. But A, it's not realistic. B, what kind of void are you trying to fill? Like, I understand that my decision or my personal beliefs has no effect on someone in France. Zero. So it's like, what are you trying to achieve? What kind of void in your life are you trying to fill? What is it that you're trying, like, what is it? Like, what are you trying to get from it? And if you would have just separated yourself from all of that, and you can still feel your way or feel this way or still want to help people, but if you could separate all of that and then put on your logical hat and look at what opportunities are in front of you, you could have had an incredible year as well. And you don't have to agree with the president to make money off of the president. I don't have to agree with what happened in Venezuela to make money off of what happened in Venezuela. Like, I opened up an option on a company that is largely involved in that. I don't have to agree or disagree. I'm going to take my emotions out of it, because guess what? Personal excellence is the ultimate form of rebellion. And how can I influence? How can I help the most amount of people? Well, it's to have more money, more reach, more power, more influence. And I think there are people who understand this. People love to talk about how awful everything is, but one thing that I think is not talked about enough is that America has the most small businesses in the entire world. It also has, I think it's in the top three. No, it's number one in the most millionaires in the entire world. Obviously, we have a very large portion. I think when you factor it in per capita, we're third. I think that's something to be talked about. Like, we have a huge population, and we have the most amount of small businesses in the entire world. I think even per capita, I could be wrong on that, but it's up there. And then like third most millionaires per capita. That's good. You have the most opportunity to succeed here, regardless of everything else. The greatest opportunity to succeed is here in this country. And we can't overlook that. And if you feel a type of way, if you want to make some kind of change, then you have to be the best version of yourself. Because if you're just getting on social media, screaming at somebody through somebody else's posts, and your life also sucks, guess what? No one is going to take your opinion seriously. And then that defeats the purpose of what you're trying to do. Because what you're trying to do should hopefully be to help people see the way that you're seeing in hopes to invite them over to your life. But if your life sucks and you're just getting on social media screaming, why would anybody want to come over?
I wouldn't say that they would.
So then how are you going to change the world by doing that and not bettering yourself?
I don't think there's a way to, it doesn't work. I think that it has to, and every single time I keep on coming to points in the conversations where I'm just like, it's a difficult thing to address there. But I think that social media, again, it creates this, it's about the visual, Instagram, whatever the case may be. It is people from the outside in looking at your life from the outside in. They're not seeing the hard times. They're not seeing the difficult times. They're seeing your successes, your wins, whatever the case may be. And they're looking from the outside in. So what people do, because they know that their audience, the people that they're looking to influence, are looking from the outside in, they focus on the outside in, on the appearance, on looking away, or whatever the case may be. But in reality, like you said, if you're not trying to be better, to grow, to develop yourself, how are you going to accomplish the goal that you have? You got to focus from, the opposite end, from the inside out, which is, you focusing from, from the inside out. You got to kind of flip the order of operations. Simon Sinek had a video called The Golden Circle. It talked about like how great leaders inspire action. And it said that most people start from the outside in, from like the clearest thing, which is like what you see, and they go backwards. So they start with what was it? The what, and then the how, and then the why, rather than doing that backwards, the why, and then the how, and then the what, you know what I'm saying? And I think that it's important. The reason why I say all that to say that I don't think that it works unless we're focused on developing ourselves, on becoming more. Because again, people are looking from the outside in, so they're attracted by the visual. They're attracted by what they see. And if they don't see you progress, if they don't see you, happy, if they don't, why are they going to opt into your opinions or your perspectives? They don't see the change. They don't see any value in the alignment, in that. They're not looking to trade places or to go in the same direction. So the best thing that you can do, and I think it ties into everything, because we spoke about, a responsibility to be able to share with people. We talked about, being drained by social media and wanting to separate, but then also thinking about being connected and, who else is going to do it. I think that there are seasons, for it all. And that there's some seasons to where you even have to step away so that you can focus on the outside in, so that you can come back and now share with people your story of how you progressed and what actually affected the change. Because when people look at it from the outside in, all they're seeing is this is where you were, this is where you are now, the change. They're not seeing what happened in between. But once you have piqued their attention, by showing them the change, now you can fill in. You got to start. For them, you got to start from the end. They see where you are now, and you got to kind of do that so you can attract their attention. But then from that point, you got to work backwards and you got to fill in the blanks. This is where it is, and this is how, I was able to, get to that point or feel that way or achieve that goal.
Do you think people think about it inversely, in the sense of, I feel like everyone's so clearly, everyone is very concerned about what other people think of them, right? And so that's where virtue signaling comes from. They're trying to appear to everyone that they're not racist, that they're not a bigot, that they're not a terrible person. And then inversely and inherently, you come off as racist, a bigot, and a terrible person, because most of that deals with screaming at somebody and calling them those names. And it's like, what are you trying to cover up for? Right. And so clearly people are thinking about it from the outside in for their own selves, right? Where they're thinking, okay, I only care about what Wale thinks of me. I don't care what I think of me or what I am. I only care about Wale's perception of me, right? And that also leads to a very selfless way of living. And people think that that is a positive thing, right? Where I'm going to completely tank my emotional health, my mental health, my health for Wale to help Wale. I'm being selfless, so I'm a good person. But in reality, the way that you are the best member of society is to be the best version of yourself, which requires a level of selfishness. Because the only way that Wale is the best spouse, best father, best businessman, best member of community is that Wale has to prioritize Wale and build himself. Make sure that he's happy, truly happy, meaning
Absolutely.
that he's taking time for himself. He's working out. He's doing things that clear his mind, make his mental health better, right? And then in turn, now that you've taken that time for yourself, now that you've prioritized yourself, now you can be a better father, spouse, X, Y, and Z, member of the community. And so many people have got it backwards, right? They want to live this selfless life, right? Where there has to be a level of selfishness, because otherwise you're not the best father you can be. You're not the best partner you can be. You're not the best member of society because your mental health is shit. You're not taking care of your physical health, so you feel like shit. Now your mental health is in the drain because you spend all day screaming or very angry. So now your mental health is shit. And so now when someone comes up to you in public, you blow them off, or you give them the cold shoulder, or you're very short with them, or you're not smiling. So now you're not a great member of society. Then you come home from work, you're drained, and your spouse wants to talk to you, or they want to hang out with you, and you're being rude, or you're being short with them, or you don't really want to have a full conversation with them. And then your kid comes up to you and wants to play, but you're tired, you're in a bad mood. And so then you half-ass play with your kid, or you're not smiling with your kid, or you're not answering their questions fully. You're giving them short answers, and then their kid grows up the same way. And so it's a snowball, like you said, right?
I think it's a crazy snowball, and that's really exactly how it happens. And I think it connects to the earlier conversation, because it's just, that's where your energy is being drained by this and this and this as the day goes on. And at the end of the day, you don't have much to pour into the things that matter the most. But with that being said, if we go back for this example specifically, this is probably not for every one of them, but for this example specifically, the snowball started with operating out of alignment with yourself. You know what I'm saying? The snowball in this situation was when you started doing it for the outside perspective. You said, this is what Wale is, looking for, or whatever the case may be. And it's not truly what was in alignment for yourself. That was the first energy drain. Now everything that comes next supports that. And it's just like, it's hard to come back from that. So, I mean, an easy solution, you live in authenticity. You know what I mean? You be who you are, and the people that are supposed to be around you will find you, even if it's slow. You know what I mean? The people that are meant to be there will be there. But imagine thinking that you're going to attract the people that are meant for you while you're pretending to be somebody else.
For other people.
Yeah. It's and that's that's what I'm saying. We've had so many different conversations that we've talked about already, but what connects them all is social media.
Is that social media or human nature? Human nature tells us to be accepted. Going against the grain is very uncomfortable.
That would also be, we can say that it's human nature, but it's also based, in that sense, I think that can be affected
or
by
highlighted
by your upbringing just as well. You know what I mean? Because if you're taught that you're looking to be accepted, or I feel like that's something, maybe you do want to be accepted by the people that are around you, people that are in your social center. But I think that there's something that probably happens throughout your life early on that leads you to feeling that way, to feeling that you have to seek that validate, because you're seeking that validation from the outside world. Maybe, like you said, there's something that they're looking to fill. There's a void, that they're looking to fill, and they're looking to fill that from other people. So they're looking to be accepted by other people.
Yeah.
When maybe that's not what the void is. You know, that's why they're chasing that or seeking that. So it could be human nature. I think it is in a sense, I also think that through some of these conversations, social media in itself connects them, maybe because it raises our personal awareness of what's happening in these situations or whatever it may be.
I think it highlights and it focuses on the most positives of human nature, but also the most negatives.
Ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
The best things that happen and then the worst things that happen is what is primarily focused on. That's why, again, for me, and I can't tell nobody what to do, but for me, it's just become so important that I just take control of that area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Use it, but use it with intention.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, do it, but do it on purpose, because it can be a positive thing. And Instagram, honestly, I don't know if I was a part of a test group or anything like that or what's going on with it, because some of my people told me that they didn't have the same access to it. But there was like this random feature that came out at the end of last year, December 3rd, like end of 2025. And it was like, you get to pick what you want to see more of and what you want to see. Like, you get to customize your algorithm a little bit. Did you see that?
Like maybe like you just given like feedback, or like you were able to offer feedback, or like
it would say, want to see more of. Mm-hmm. And then you would type in, for me, I'm like meal prep, fitness, finance, family, you know, whatever the case may be. And it would show more of those things. So in my reels now, I'm seeing more meal prepping, you know, I'm seeing more things like that. And I think that, you know, just taking control of it is important. If I could tell anybody, I think it's had an effect on me. You know, I don't have to be as constantly engaged there. Like, I can come with intention, check in with my people. I'm not just stuck going down the rabbit hole of whatever social media has to offer.
Yeah.
I recommend a cleanse for everybody.
Yeah. Start over. Start it over, because your algorithm is clearly a representation of your inner self. My algorithm is largely positive. Largely. It's if there is political things, it's largely people having a legitimate take on something.
Yeah. But you think about it as well, though, is that your algorithm is also a reflection of who you might have had the same Instagram page for 10 years and it's been collecting information from you throughout that entire period of time. But maybe in the last 2 years, you personally changed your life. You started doing something different. You may not even be the same person that you were today that you were 2 years ago. So the algorithm that was created for you is no longer directly aligned. So now to bring it into alignment, you add and you subtract. You know what I'm saying? Because the foundation of it may still be, you have friends from 8 years or colleagues, people that you knew, that you passed along, you know, your journey, that you guys are not going in the same direction. And it's clear. At one point, you were friends with them because of the proximity. Maybe that was my neighbor. And when I went outside to play, they were next door to me. So we spent time. But as we've grown, we've gone in different directions. We're not aligned. Do I still follow you and now consume what you're putting out, knowing that we're not aligned? Or do I be selfish, like you said, focus on myself completely, and then be the inspiration to you till you can be like, I knew him, you know, he was somebody. I remember when he started this, you know what I'm saying? I remember when this was here. And now you ask the question, what changed? What happened? And now that's how you have the opportunity to influence or to influence the person. They're now open. But it's not because you consumed their content. It's not because you were constantly engaging with them. I like debate. So sometimes when I see those things, I did have a habit of being in the one, oh, but these are the facts. Let me correct you. They're not really looking for the truth. They want the engagement. They want the conversation. So I'm protecting myself and being intentional.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, right? It's interesting. a weird time, but also a great time. Like it's crazy because you can easily go down the path where it's like the world is on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can kind of disconnect, like you said, and go outside and you're like, oh, wait, no, the world's not on fire. Mm. Right? Do I think there's important things that are going on and that people should be aware of? Yeah, absolutely. Right? You got the Canadian Prime Minister talking about New World Order. Mm-hmm. I think you should 100% hear what he said, and you should be like, fuck that. And you should be, not outrage is not the right word. You should be aware. Right? Especially if you have a family, if you have kids, you should be aware. You shouldn't be getting emotionally attached. You should be aware in the sense of, okay, I see where things are headed. So that way I can start taking proper precautions in that direction. Right? Is there a chance that all of this shit goes away? Yeah. There is, and you have to think like that. If you have kids, if you have a family, you have to at least factor in the fact that this could all go away in a split second. An EMP could come. Someone could invade. We could self-destruct. Nuclear war, etc. Right? All these things are possible. They can happen. And so there has to be things that you're doing in order to prepare for that. Maybe you're stocking up on just a little extra water. Maybe you got some canned food. Maybe firearms, ammo, practical skills, learning how to start fires or just knowing how to start a fire. Maybe you go on a hunt with your buddies, right? All these things can be they don't have to be prepper by nature. They can be fun and communal, but you're also learning practical things that if something was to happen, you can protect those that you love and your people around you.
I think it's important.
It is.
I think it's important. I think that, so to your first point of we do need to know about the major events and the things that are happening. What do you think the likelihood would be is that if you didn't watch the news, you didn't read the newspaper every day, you didn't do any of those things, you were disconnected, but maybe you went and at the end of the week, you asked somebody, has there anything crazy happened this week? You probably get the whole rundown in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You'll probably get a soundbite. This has happened, this, and now you go and you research those individual things. Yeah.
It goes back to what you're saying, being intentional with it, right? Soaking it in. I think some people can handle it. I think largely people cannot, right? I would say largely, I more so get freaked out about civil war and societal collapse. That's what freaks me out, right? The rest of the things, like the arguing and the yelling, I largely find it amusing is very soft, but it's almost amusing because at this point, like y'all are literally just screaming at each other. And for what? And that stuff doesn't really get to me. Like people commenting on my posts, it doesn't get to me. I like some of the comments are fucking funny. I'm like, that's funny. Good for you. Like, okay, cool. But that goes back to having a strong foundation. I know largely who I am.
I love that. And
what I believe in, right? And so like, you can comment whatever you want, call me whatever name you want. Okay, well, you're going to call me racist. Okay, that's fucking silly. You can call me whatever you want. I like, there's certain things that I'm like, okay, you can, say whatever you want, but it's never going to change the reality of things, right? What does freak me out and what can affect my mental health is legitimate societal collapse, because we are hitting that point.
I think that if there is a civil war, I'm glad I'm in Texas. I think that we're in a pretty good place.
Straight. We're in the best, or one of the best places, because look, we are printing $53 trillion a week. We're not backed by anything no more. There is no gold backing it. It's not backed on anything. It's not real money anymore. It's the same thing the Romans did. The Romans stopped using as much materials to make their money. They started using like little coatings of silver, and then people started to realize the silver was falling off. The money looked like junk. The middle class was getting squeezed. The middle class is getting squeezed. There are a lot of things to be concerned about. But also, I don't largely have control of those things. What I do have control over is preparing for those things, knowing how to defend myself, knowing how to operate a firearm, knowing how to, again, doing all the things that we've already talked about over and over again, knowing how to do those things. So in the case, or in the sense, or in the off chance, not even off chance, in the chance that it does happen, well, all right, here we go.
You got to give yourself the best shot.
You have to.
You got to give yourself the best chance.
You have to, because what's the alternative? You just watch your family die. It's dark, but that...
It's real. It's absolutely real.
Dude, that's the fucking... Like, I don't understand when people don't take that seriously. You have a family. Do you know how awful it would be to watch them slowly die or get, like, something that you could have not prevented, because inevitably, if something like that is going to happen, it's going to happen. But something you could have better prepared for that would have prevented that specific outcome.
I wonder if people think about things like that on a regular basis. I think about stuff like that, bro. I think about like, yo, what if I had to put my kid in the bathtub and I had to hold down my house and I don't know what's coming in. I got to just have the best shot. I just got to give myself the best chance to survive and to take care of my kid. Like,
it's a legitimate thing.
It could put yourself, you know, that might be a dark thought, you know, but
I think it's practical.
I think it's practical. Well.
It's not dark. It's reality. Again, it goes back to the very, very first things we were talking about. People want bacon, but they don't want to see how bacon is made. If you talk to people that come from these countries, these war-torn countries, my buddy from Ukraine, you listen to his stories and you hear about the things he's seen and the things he's experienced. It's a far different reality and a far different perspective than us soft, coddled Americans have ever experienced. Ever. And so all these people, they're reposting these awful videos of Gaza. They're reposting these awful videos of Ukraine, but yet they still sit here in their rosy chair thinking that shit won't happen. And then they continue to vote in a fashion that promotes that type of government that leads to that type of turmoil.
I think that people just get so used to... We fall into cycles. We do the same things again and again and again. And a lot of the things that we do, we don't even understand why we do it. Sometimes we do things just because our parents before us did them. Sometimes our parents before us did them just because their parents did them. And these are just things that we continue to take with us.
Are you aware when you do something like that?
I'm at a point right now where my awareness and just trying to understanding of self is very important to me. I'm sure there's things that I don't recognize and that I don't realize, but then there are things that I see and it like stands out to me. I think that, you know, for me, me and my father is older now, you know what I mean? He's in his 60s. You know, our relationship is different. You know, I'm not in his household as his child anymore. You know, as I have conversations with my father, I start to learn about his personalities, things like that, you know, and I'm like, we have similarities in that space. Mm-hmm. Those are things that we have in common. And it makes me like, it just makes me, because I'm like, those are things that I was doing, but I didn't know that it came from somewhere, or I'm not saying comes from somewhere, is this, you know, but I didn't, again, these can be early impacts. These can be like during your formative years as a child, things that you picked up on from your parents that you brought with you. And now you don't even recognize that you took it from them, but you're walking with that. You come to a point of consciousness to where, for me, after being aware, like I've had to work on my relationship with my father. You know what I mean? Me and my father have not always had the best relationship. There was a period of time to where We didn't speak for a real long time, like years, you know what I'm saying? And as we have been intentionally building the relationship, because now as an adult, you have to be intentional. When you're a child, you're in their house. It's not intentional. You have no choice but to be around them. You know, now you're an adult. You might move out the house or move out the state. Now making that phone call and talking, it has to be by choice. You got to be intentional about it. But now as we are intentionally building that relationship, I'm learning different things. And I'm just like, I've seen that in myself. And the thing is that you'll see it in yourself. You'll see it in your children. You'll see it in your parents. I think that's how we kind of break that cycle, because eventually when you start to recognize the pattern, you have to make a decision on whether you stay within that loop or you allow it to break. And from my father, you know, obviously, the most love and respect, you know, and I've learned so many things. I could spend hours talking about it, but there are certain things that I'm like, I see this and I'm gonna take that. And on the opposite end, I'm gonna leave that where it's at. That's not gonna serve me where I'm going or for the next generation. And I believe that being able to sit down, you know, visually understand ourselves so that we can understand the people around us, you know what I'm saying? And we can understand the influence or the impact of the people around us, and then making the decision on which way we want to go. Like, what do you want to do with that information? You know what I mean?
What tools or what methods or what ways what are you doing in order to explore that level of consciousness, that level of awareness? Like, what has helped you, or what allows you to sit down and do that self-reflection? Because I don't know that everybody does that. Or if they do, I think they drown it.
I think everything ties into everything. So it's a great question. Fantastic question. Fantastic question. So number one, I'm gonna tell a little story real quick.
Please.
Because I always say this, and there's a lot of people who, if I were to die tomorrow and they was to remember something, they would remember this, because for my people, I say it all the time. And now when I say it, they're like, they just laugh or they just accept it, whatever the case may be. But it ties back into what we were saying earlier. So for me, I always tell the story. I say that life is just a journey. Life is just a walk. You know, one of my greatest fears was, you know, imagine just walking your entire life and getting to the end of your life, right? Getting to the end of your life and standing in front of the person that you were supposed to be. You know what I mean? Standing in front of that person and not being that person. Like, imagine that there was so my faith is a big part of my life, my walk and everything, my reason to self-assess and to, you know, look at myself. It's been a great part because of my faith. But in my faith, you know, we used to always, you know, growing up, my parents would always talk about your walk with Christ. You know, I'm sure you've heard like your walk with Christ, you know, from like Christians or Catholics or whatever the case may be. So I came up with this example in my head and I said, if life is just a journey and life is just a walk, imagine I'm walking for the rest of my life. And that's all it is. We're just going through day by day and we're just walking. Sometimes we're walking quickly, sometimes we're walking slowly. But again, because of my faith, like, I believe that there is somebody that I was made to be. You know what I'm saying? There's a scripture, and I'm not gonna go. I can go into scripture on a lot of things, but I'm not gonna do too much on that. But there's a scripture that says, "Before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you." Right? I look at that now, and it's affected my relationship with my daughter as well as like how I walk through life. Because what that means is that, number one, I have an identity even before we're developing our identity, but I was already somebody. I already have a purpose, which means in my mind, there's already somebody who I'm supposed to become, you know, through my experiences in order to fulfill that purpose, if that makes sense. And to take that now further is to say, if I were to get to the end of my life and not be that person, like how disappointing would that be?
Okay.
So to answer your question, is that with the vision of who that person should be, or who that person, could be, I constantly self-assess and see if my actions today are aligning with who I want to become. You know what I mean? That's how I start to raise the consciousness or awareness in that sense, to just like even have an idea or a focus or a vision for who I could be or who I want to be or who God has made me to be.
And how do you ensure that those decisions that you're being conscious about are aligning with that person you're supposed to be?
I love that. So there's tiers to that. There's layers to that. But at the foundational layer, it goes back to the other example of talking about like a tree, the fruit, the leaves, the branches, the trunk, the roots. I believe that is through being rooted, having a foundation, in how you want to best walk. You know what I mean? I believe that is, again, from, my belief, there is again, if life is just a journey and life is just a walk, I'm walking for the rest of my life. I want to go in one direction. They talk about your walk with Christ, right? If imagine that Christ was actually walking with you, that Jesus Christ was here in the flesh, walking with you, right? And he was the example for how we should walk, right? Then as I'm walking, how do I know if my beliefs or what my actions are in alignment with that person? Is to try to walk as closely in alignment with Christ as I can. Which there's a text, there's scripture, things like that you can judge your alignment based off of. And that's essential. And I hope that, and that's kind of how I look at that situation, at the foundational level, like the root level of it. And then it goes to talk about like the fruits of the spirit. Like there are certain things that you see when we come back to looking at a tree, the fruits, the leaves, the branches, the trunk, whatever the case may be. What are the fruits that we're seeing? If the fruits that I'm seeing in my life are not what I would want them to be, then something's not in alignment. Mm-hmm. And now it's up to me to figure out what that is. Mm-hmm. How do I seek that? How do I find how I'm out of alignment? You know what I mean?
How do you?
Go back, the same example, go back to the scripture. That's the thing that I love about it is that, a lot of people look at, I can only speak to what I know. I'm a Christian. A lot of people think about like religion or Christianity as like it's restrictive. You got to act this way. You got to be in alignment this way. But imagine if there was imagine if this was a video game and there was like a book that was like an instruction manual on this is how you can play the game and get the result. Like you can always go back and check if things are in alignment because you have the instruction manual in that. And that's like, a lot of people are not, I'm not religion. You know what I'm saying? I'm a follower of Christ, and who is Christ?
It's laying a foundation for you to follow.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think that's where we're lost a lot in society. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier, when we have beliefs in culture, right? And then politicians just happen to align with those, and that's where we're going to align at that time. But those cultures and beliefs stay steady, right? They may alter, or they may gain perspective, or they may differ. Or they may, they may evolve over time, but there's a baseline, a moral baseline that we follow, right? I'm not a very religious person, but I find myself morally, I follow something. Something in me drives me the same kind of way, whether it is this inevitable belief of God or this compass that's just built into me. But I find myself kind of doing a very similar process without, necessarily even having the religious aspect of it. But I don't think, and I think we're seeing, most people can't do that. Most people need that strong foundation to guide them, because whether it's, I don't even know why. I'm not even going to speculate on why most people can't do that, but I think it's very clear that people need that in some fashion. They need to pull from something.
It's easy for me, and I think the problem with that, and I think I agree 1,000%. But I think that the reason why it becomes easier for me is because I don't have to be my own moral authority.
Yeah.
I don't have to try to guide myself on what is this and what is that. That's not what I don't have to spend the time or the energy there.
Yeah.
Everybody else that wants to be, they want to run it or control them, they now have to set that structure or foundation for themselves. I get to skip all of that. You know what I mean? I get to skip all of that. And it's not just about, blind faith, or it's just, oh, this is what it's told. I'd like to do things and then test things, see if it works. I like to question what's even in and go and question it. And then I like to see the similarities between even what's said in the scripture or whatever the case may be and what's said in the world, and how even people who are not believers in like Christ or whatever the case may be, even people who are not believers that have never opened the Bible or done anything that's in the word, when they are in alignment with what's said in the word, they still often reap the rewards, even unknowingly, because they're still in alignment with it. One of the things that I'll say to that is that there's a scripture that it says, it's Habakkuk 2:2. It says, write the vision and make it plain on tablets so that he who sees it will run to it. And even though it may tarry, even though it may take a long time to come to fruition, it will surely happen at an appointed time. That's like a biblical view of it. From a secular perspective, we hear the greatest mentors in the world that say to write down your goals, create your vision board. You know what I'm saying? January 1st, new year, new me. This is what I'm looking to accomplish. And as you write those things down on paper or on your vision board, or as you write these things down, statistically speaking, they're more likely to come to fruition.
You know what I think the root of that is? Of everything, like accountability.
Absolutely.
Because since you have, you're talking about walking your life with Christ, that's your accountability. Mm-hmm. So it's inevitable that there is accountability every single day, because there's, even maybe a little bit of a shame or a little bit of fear that Christ would then judge you for something that you just did, right? Whether that's a positive or a negative thing. That is important, in my opinion. It is important to have this foundation in some fashion, in some way, because when you don't, you see what is happening when people largely don't have that. And it doesn't have to necessarily be religion, or you don't even necessarily have to be this overly religious person, to your point, but there has to be something guiding you. Otherwise you get lost.
I think I appreciate that just as well. And I think accountability is definitely the reason why, or a contributing factor there. And we see it in our lives. We look at how, the proper accountability impacts our lives. We have our team, we have our, you have your partner, you have whoever it is in your life that is holding you accountable, that you trust to guide you or to direct you in that. You benefit from the proximity to those people. You know what I mean? What I love about it, and where it makes my mind go to, is that it doesn't have to be religious or whatever the case may be. But as a follower of Christ, you believe that Christ could walk with you. Jesus walks with me. You know what I mean? Like, so that accountability is always present, even if it's just your belief. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because if the accountability that I look for that is going to value or benefit my life, is found in the group around me, which is also important, not discounting that, then maybe I'm accountable when they're present, when they're watching, when I'm comfortable enough to express to them what actually has happened, whatever the case may be. But if I have a moral compass or a moral code, that's a foundation that's already been laid, I believe that even in the unknown, when other people are not seeing it, when I'm in my quiet place and it's just me there's still somebody watching me. You act differently when somebody's watching you. A lot of times people will act differently when somebody's watching them compared to when somebody's not watching them. It may sound intrusive or feel some type of way, but what if you was just acting the right way all the time? And that's like, what is that called? That's integrity, or that's like
Integrity is a good one. Authenticity, genuineness.
You're being the same person regardless of if somebody's watching or not, regardless of the external accountability or not, because you do have an external pull. You believe that you have your creator, and you do have that external pull on your consciousness at all times. So with that being said, like, man, it just
it's a beautiful thing. It is. It's a really beautiful thing. And it goes back to what we're saying. A lot of people are worried about what other people think. Whereas in turn, if you're the best version of yourself, if you're the most authentic, the most genuine person of yourself, you will find the people who love you the most. And you can only do that by being yourself. If you're constantly trying to mold yourself to whatever environment you're in, then you don't even know who you are. And if you don't know who you are, you get lost. And once you get lost, it's really hard to find your way back. I always say, like, something I think about a lot is like, is working out worth it? Is doing martial arts worth it when there's so much wear and tear on your body? Fucking sucks. It hurts. Some days you wake up and it really sucks, right? And you're like, damn, dude, is it worth it? Like, is this pain, this physical pain worth it? And I always come back to the same thing, dude. It is so much easier to fix your body than it is to fix your mind. And the one thing martial arts and physical fitness and things of that do for you is it clears your mind and it makes it strong. It gives you fortitude. It gives you emotional intelligence. And people are potentially lacking those things because they're avoiding something difficult, something hard. And they're not hardening their mind, which allows them to be so easily manipulated and so easily outraged and so easily emotional. And it is 100% worth it. It is 100% worth being sore, waking up with a sore neck, sore back, sore shoulder. It's fucking worth it, because when your mind is strong, life is very simple. You see everything very clearly. It becomes very easy to maneuver through. It becomes very easy to walk through. And sure, you might have goals that you might fail. You might fall short. Maybe you never do make the amount of money that you're trying to make, or maybe you never achieve some of the things that you didn't achieve. But I can guarantee you will be more satisfied. You'll be at least happier. You'll be less regretful if you move that way through life.
Do hard things. You got to do hard things, man. I love martial arts. I'm grateful that I found it. It's become an important part of my life just as well. And I do definitely believe it's shaped, my perspectives, my views. It's been a part of that development of yourself. We just spoke a little bit about, spiritual side of things. You can't just focus in one area. You can't just focus in one area. You do have to go ahead and branch out into these different spaces, take care of your physical health just as well. And through that, it's helped me to clear my mind. I've also met some of my best friends, through some martial arts, Like it's allowed me to connect with, with different people that are from, maybe I wouldn't have even connected with them outside of that. Maybe outside of that, we don't have all that much in common. But being able to get involved and, see that community grow. I would definitely recommend it to everybody.
What made you walk in that first day?
Man, it's honestly something that I've wanted to do for a super long time, not in terms of like Muay Thai specifically, But when I was in college, I was big on my just physique. You know, I was just weight training. I was just looking strong, but not functional, just strong, gym strong, heart, you know. But when I would go into the gym, I had this one dude that approached me, and he's like, yeah, I train Golden Glove boxers. Like, I've worked with these and these people. And he says, you look like you would do great at it. This was probably like 2017. And I never got started. Never started. Come to 2020, 2021, it's me and my child's mother, and I'm kind of just like, I'm expressing it to her. And I mentioned it to her that it's something that I would want to do, something that I would be, you know, I would like to, you know, I would want to explore. You know, I was in a place to where I was just around a lot of women just as well. And I'm like, you know, I need to put myself around some men. I'm getting a little bit older. I'm like, you know what? I'm not still going and playing pickup basketball every weekend. So I need a way to stay competitive, you know, as I am growing. And I'm like, I kept on mentioning it to her, and I passed by the gym every day on my way home. And she actually just booked me a trial class at John's. I walked in John's. I saw that the instructor was a black dude. I'm like, okay, cool. I said, I could get behind this. I was like, yeah, I like that. You know what I'm saying? I was like, yeah, I felt connected automatically. I think he was the only black person there too. He was teaching the whole class, but I think that when I came in that first day, it was him. It was just him. I'm like, okay, cool. A little community there. Let me see if I can go and connect. And I just fell in love with the whole thing, man. Just everything. Just everything. I went in the first day, and I literally never looked back ever since then. Never stopped. Not once. And I went in not knowing anything, but I automatically found community. You know, I automatically saw something to where I felt like a child again, like a baby. You know what I mean? Like, I'm learning how to crawl, you know, in this sport. I'm gaining this level of, you know, humility, because I know that even some of the women in there will put hands on you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man, I went in there because I just needed a positive outlet. And I've been there ever since, man. Been just working on, you know, and it's just become a part of, you know, that development of myself, you know, and the person that I'm becoming. So grateful for it, man.
Fuck yeah. It's awesome. I have a very similar story where I was told to do it and started years later, right? And I think we can end it on that, man. End it on, like, you know, deep down what it is that you're supposed to do. There's a voice in your head. There's always something telling you, hey, do this. Hey, do this. Stop fighting that. Stop it. Go with it. Listen. Open your mind. Set your ego aside. And continue to chase that childlike feeling, that childlike excitement, that I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing.
Even the discomfort of it. You know what I mean? Not knowing what you're getting into.
Yeah.
You know, and understanding the sport in itself, and that I don't know what's about to happen when I go in there. Somebody's about to try to punch me, and I don't know how to defend myself. But you got to be able to, like, see that and say, you know what? It may be difficult, but I'm gonna go through it anyways. You know what I'm saying? And I love that there is that whisper. And I wonder, I never really sat and thought about it, but I wonder how things would have gone if I would have started back then.
Yeah.
You know, in 2017, if I had, that's almost 9 years. That's 9 years of experience in the same. Because if I would have started, I wouldn't have stopped the same way that I'm going now.
Yeah. 100%.
So it's just like, I wonder. So it just goes back to that. You know, when that voice whispers, you gotta follow that.
Yeah.
You got to listen to that, you know, but if it's something that's meant for you, it'll come back to you, because even somehow, you know, whether it was 6 years later or not, I still found myself in the same place, and I still have the same love for it, regardless of the fact, you know what I mean, that I started a little bit later than, you know, maybe I would have wanted to.
Yeah. Better late than never. You still found it. Because again, that voice is right. Well, whoever that voice is, whatever that voice knows. All right. When you're sitting on the couch and you know you're supposed to be doing something else, that voice always knows. It's always telling you. Stop fighting it. Stop creating friction in your own head. and just get after it. Whatever it is that you want to do, whatever it is that piques your interest, whatever it is that makes you excited, whatever it is that allows your mind to focus solely on that one activity. Whatever that activity is, that's a great activity. That's a blessing. When you can find something that you're so obsessed with that everything else doesn't matter, it's a beautiful thing. And yeah, we'll wrap it up there. I gotta pee like a motherfucker.
I do too.
I gotta pee, bro. I even peed before this, but I drank a good bit of coffee and a good bit of water. Yeah, tell people where they can follow you, find you. I know you're doing like you have your like trading things that you're doing in your workshops, and where people can follow along and they can join your community. So tell everybody where they can find you, how they can find you, and yeah, we'll do this shit again, dude.
All right. Yeah, man. I mean, on every platform, I think it's Wall Street Wale, you know, so WAL, pretty easy to follow. WALL, well, you put it on the screen.
Yeah, I'll put it, yeah. But yeah, Wall Street Wale. And that's on what? Instagram, TikTok?
Instagram, TikTok, X.
That's about it, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the good ones.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, yeah, dude, check them out. If you're interested in trading, just fitness, good follow, good information, good vibes, check it out, follow them, and yeah, do this shit again, dude. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no doubt, bro.
Hell yeah. All right, y'all.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, dude. We'll see you next week.